Sisters in the Wilderness. The contextual antecedents for this theological accomplishment are the living spaces carved out by womanist theologians who were in sync with the liberation wisdom of 1985. At that time, Cheryl Townsend Gilkes, as the first national convener of the Womanist Approach to Religion and Society group, presented African American women who were members of the AAR-SBL with a laudable goal: the crafting of programmatic strategies that would ensure lasting participation in bringing our education, talents, and imagination to bear in the wider world. Sean M. Copeland sums up the womanist theological agenda as differentiating the experiences, such as religious, personal, cultural, social, psychological, and biological, of African American women in the hermeneutical circle of theological inquiry and research, reflection, and judgment. Before 1993, two womanist monographs were published: My Black Womanist Ethics and Jacqueline Grant's White Women's Christ, Black Women's Jesus, Feminist Christology and Womanist Response. Since the publication of Sisters in the Wilderness in 1993, womanists have published more than 24 books documenting the claim that rigorous inquiry and open communication of, by, and for Black women are essential as we rethink the content and method of theology, ethics, and biblical exegesis. Still, critics from within the academy and outside it may ask, what is the significance of the wilderness metaphor to people who teach and preach in a 21st century globalized world, a world that moves at breakneck speed with interlocking economies, cultures, government, policies, military affairs, and political movements? In the context of religious scholarship, Williams' answer is clear. Using the cautionary tale of Hagar, the Egyptian woman in the book of Genesis, chapter 16, the handmaid of Sarah, who is cast out into the wilderness, Williams exposes realistic details of the painful limits set against Black existence in U.S. society. The heart of Williams' thesis acknowledges the joys and sorrows, ups and downs, gains and losses of Black women searching for meaning in an unjust world. With this book, Williams launched an interdisciplinary, intertextual womanist conversation. She examined Hagar's legacies and myths via biblical exegesis and literary criticism, and artfully wove together the threads of these two interpretive tools through nuanced African American cultural history. In order to bring us to the contemporary understanding of what it means to refer to and identify African Americans as Aunt Hagar's children, women, men, and children who feel ostracized, alienated, and cast out into modern-day deserts. In other words, stories about our identity as Aunt Hagar's children exemplify how truth claims about the bygone days of slavery are linked to our God consciousness and survivalist intentions as descendants of freed people living in these contemporary times. Writing metaphorically about the biblical understanding of wilderness, Williams responds to the question raised by critics in this way. Hagar's experience in the wilderness of Beersheba serves as a symbolic counterpart to the living reality of numerous African American women and children who live in conditions of vast, bewildering peril here and now. Pulling no punches, Delores Williams elaborates in graphic detail on the exorbitant price women in the African diaspora pay with our embodied social selves when forced into exploitative motherhood and coercive surrogacy. Notably, for those of us who have been reading and teaching Sisters in the Wilderness since 1993, and who, as theological educators, will continue to use this book as a required text for decades to come, we accept Williams' invitation to join her in wrestling with Hagar's God, a God who sees and hears. She contends that theologians need to think seriously about the real-life consequences of redemptive suffering, God talk that equates the acceptance of pain, misery, and abuse as the way for true believers to live as authentic Christian disciples. Those who spew such false teaching and warped preaching must cease and desist.